Gentlemen, it is official. Tani Oluwaseyi has joined Villarreal. Or if we keep playing this game with the Canadian men's national team players going to Villarreal, it might have to become Villarreal very, very soon. He will, of course, be playing alongside Tajon Buchanan. There are some reports of the different figures that have been out there in terms of signing fees and bonuses. What is seeming to be most consistent for our team is a €6.5 million deal for Minnesota United with €3 million in bonuses. This has been long reported, long speculated, but now that we have a price tag, Gareth, does this suggest that the expectations on Tani will be high from day one?
I think automatically they will be when you're a player going to a club of that magnitude, a club that over the last 13 years have only finished outside the top 8 once in La Liga. It's a small club with big ambitions that continually punch over their weight. Kind of what we envision Canada soccer to be. The little guys punching above their weight against the big boys. And that's what Villarreal have continued to do year after year after year. And it's a good platform and a good position for Oluwaseyi to find himself in. Some aging strikers. Gerard Moreno is the captain, but he's older now. There's a real opportunity for him to establish himself in the team with a lot of fixtures, a lot of games upcoming. I also really like about this move, Marcelino is an excellent manager year after year. I just think that he is the right man to kind of help maybe unleash even more ability, more talent from Oluwaseyi as well. And just on the balance of this move, this has to put Tani in pole position to be the preferred strike partner for Jesse Marsh in Canada at this point. Going to a big club of this magnitude, while the other strikers are playing for some decent clubs like Promise David, Belgium. Okay, it's not La Liga. Kyle Aaron, we have no idea what his future has in store. Jebison out through injury, but playing in the league championship. Oluwaseyi is the clubhouse leader right now. And on the balance of what we saw in the summer as well, it seems like Marsh had a preference to Oluwaseyi and what he brought to the table anyway. So all in all, there's massive potential here. And we in Canada, we might just sing it along. We all live in a yellow submarine if this continues and more Canadians land with this club.
Ollie, continuing with the theme of expectations, this was a player that was playing for Manhattan SC in 2021. He's now in La Liga. So obviously this is a remarkable rise, a feel-good story, but are you with Garrett that expectations for this player who is now a La Liga striker are very high?
Yeah, they will be high, obviously, going to a club, that finishes in the type of positions in a league like this that Villarreal do. I do think that it's a good fit, though, in the sense that I think Villarreal as a club, as Will's kind of touched upon, look for this kind of player who's a little bit underrated, maybe a little bit of a late bloomer, and try to polish those gems. Like you look at some of the attacking options they've had over the past season or two. Tiano Barry obviously just went to Everton. They picked him up from the Swiss league, probably a similar level to the one Oluwaseyi is coming from. Tajon Buchanan, they obviously kind of resuscitated his career after a major injury and a move that hadn't worked out. They had an academy player, Baena, come through and then moved to Atletico Madrid for big money. Nicolas Pepe, they kind of picked up off the scrap heap on a free transfer after he'd been playing in Turkey. Ete Young, another one of the forward players in the squad this season, he's come up from a B team. So it's not a club that signs household names and looks for those kind of players who are already proven at that level and demonstrated, they're ready-made stars. I think they look for players that they can polish a little bit, like Tani Oluwaseyi, and try to do that. And they've done a very good job of doing that. Third in goal scoring in La Liga that last season, same in XG, despite having obviously a much lesser budget than the big clubs they're kind of trying to compete with. So I like it. I think it's a really good fit for him. I do think it does change the dynamic quite a lot of. With Canada, previously you had Kyle Larin playing in Europe, Promise David, Daniel Jebison, obviously, and Tani was kind of the safe one of like, we know this guy is going to play for Minnesota United, right, and we know he's going to score goals for Minnesota United. Now he takes that gamble of trying to take the next step in his career with maybe less guarantee, of the minutes he's going to get, the production he's going to get early on. So that's an interesting kind of switch in the dynamic. But if he does well, yeah, absolutely, he's in pole position to be the guy alongside Jonathan David.
Well, I'm not suggesting anything is official, but Gareth might be looking for a new club to support for reasons that we do not need to discuss on this program. Gareth, would you consider making the switch if you need to dump Man United and go over to Villarreal?
I'm not dumping Manchester United. I'm just numb to the pain now. If once in a while, if you're in a scorn relationship and you've been burned so many times, you just kind of like brush it off. Like, yeah, what else is new? That's with Manchester United struggles. Look, I think that there'll be more general interest from Canadians in Villarreal. That's part of the deal when you have two players of prominent national team, national team standard playing for them. I think that when Villarreal is playing in the Champions League or Europa League competition, whatever that may be over the next few years, or when they play Barcelona, Real Madrid, probably more Canadian eyeballs will be cast towards Villarreal, which is a good thing. I just don't know if I fully buy this idea that a European club can be the team for all Canadians. I'm not sure if that knock-on effect has happened with Bayern Munich, although there has been more interest. With Lille, when Jonathan David was there, although there's been more interest. You end up seeing more kit from those teams on the street. Like, I can't wait. We're going to be seeing it over the next couple of months, like Jonathan David Juventus kits. Like, so there is a knock-on effect, but I don't think that this is a team that all of a sudden all Canadians will be supporting. It does work like that for certain nations, like when South African players have gone on to play abroad and different smaller nations that are absolutely sport crazy. We in this country are just so divided on what we support and who we support and why we support them that I just don't think that it'll catch on that way.
Well, Ollie, you and I have known each other for almost a decade at this point. It feels like longer. You know that I love to live in fantasy lands where some of these rules don't matter and we can play these hypothetical games. So if this world did exist, which Canadian men's national team player should be next, or would you like to see be next to join Tejan and Tani at Villarreal?
Well, I would absolutely like to see anyone because I do think it's a good club, as we've talked about. But I have a name, which is Derek Cornelius, who has been linked with, I think, a La Liga club or two and seems to be kind of weighing up his future at Marseille. I will say, as much as I think it would be a great move for Cornelius, and I really like Cornelius as a player, this is selfishly motivated because if Cornelius leaves, I can just fully hate watch Roberto De Zerbi's Marseille with no kind of lingering interest in having a Canadian player there based on their treatment of Ismail Kone. So I would love to see that one happen.
Okay. How about someday I'd love to see Alistair Johnston go and play for Villarreal because you can have the Canadian right side, and this is for selfish Canadian reasons as well, with Johnston linking up with Buchanan, which would mimic exactly with the national team as well. And with Celtic being dumped out of the Champions League, doesn't Celtic kind of lose its luster when they're not even at the standard? Who'd lose to this week? A team from Kazakhstan? I mean,
Kazakhstan.
Yeah.
Everyone's favorite Kazakh club.
I mean, and Johnston's out for a few months as well. So yeah, we'll go in that direction. The Canadian right side for the Yellow Submarine. That would be intriguing.
Sega's still available.
Yeah.
Could also be a Canadian right side.